Even though we can't survive in space for long, humans have managed to install eyes in outer space which allow us to see what is going on out there in real time. However, sometimes these camera eyes capture really strange things that even the most seasoned astronomers can't explain. In this video, we bring you how NASA chief scientist just made a huge announcement after a satellite detected something strange above our planet. One of the biggest achievements of humanity is the International Space Station, the ISS. It serves very important functions, but some of the most interesting features of the structure are the cameras because of the nature of what they often capture. You'll be shocked to see some of them. The ISS, the largest single structure humans ever put into space, was a massive construction project. The main construction was completed between 1998 and 2011, but new components are being added to accommodate new missions and experiments. It has been continuously occupied since November 2000. So who owns the ISS? While NASA is the most prominent space agency in the world, it doesn't own the ISS. It is a cooperative program between Europe, the United States, Russia, Canada, and Japan. Operating the ISS is not cheap. NASA spends about $3 billion annually on the space station, consuming about one-third of its entire budget for human spaceflight. Russia is another major partner and has sent 54 people there, compared to the 158 people the US has sent. You can actually see the ISS without any equipment at night as it's highly visible in the night sky. It appears as a luminous moving point of light and rivals the brilliant planet Venus in brightness. What makes up the ISS? The first Russian modules contain the systems that make the station function and provide living areas for crew members. Modules called nodes connect parts of the station to each other. Stretching out to the sides of the space station are the solar arrays that can be easily seen in the photos of the station. These panels harvest energy from the sun to provide electrical power. The arrays are connected to the station with a long truss. On the truss are radiators that control the space station's temperature. There are robotic arms mounted outside the space station. They were used to build the space station but can also move astronauts around when they conduct spacewalks outside. Other arms operate science experiments. Astronauts can go on spacewalks through airlocks that open to the outside, and pictures of them floating in space are quite popular as they look otherworldly. Docking ports allow other spacecraft to connect to the space station. New crews and visitors arrive through these ports. Astronauts fly to the space station on the Russian Soyuz, and robotic spacecraft use the docking ports to deliver supplies. The ISS affects your everyday life, even if you've not thought of it. Much of the research carried out there has yielded products that we use every day on Earth, and some scientific research can only be carried out in the station because of their requirements. The ISS has a total of 4 external cameras which SpaceX sent as part of the CR3 mission. These high-definition video or HDEV cameras are mounted on the Columbus lab of the ISS. Together, the 4 cameras are called the Columbus Eye, and a live-streaming website is operated by the University of Bonn in Germany. The school partnered with the German Space Agency to establish the Columbus Eye program. While NASA chose to give an official-sounding acronym to the cameras, COTS, or Commercial Off-the-Shelf Cameras, the cameras do basically what all other cameras do: capture live feed. One video camera faces forward, 2 cameras face backward or wake, while 1 camera faces below or nadir. They are connected via an Ethernet cable to the space station's computer and beamed down to Earth. You can trust NASA to make an experiment out of everything. Scientists track the rate of degradation to image quality because they are subjected to cosmic radiation. Scientists also determine how tough the housing for the cameras is when faced with those space rays. The cameras are protected in a pressurized and temperature-controlled box. The analysis of how they are holding up may help engineers decide which cameras are the best types to use on future missions. The feeds from these cameras are quite intriguing, and many people, including amateur astronomers, follow the feed through the internet. However, every now and then, the cameras pick up something that causes lots of excitement. Sometimes people spot what suspiciously looks like an unidentified flying object or a UFO. What baffles watchers is that NASA often cuts the live feed and switches to pre-recorded materials when things get exciting. This has led many people to believe the space agency is hiding something from the public. But what exactly is NASA concealing from us? Take a recent case, for example, that spurred theories of alien spotting in an attempt at a cover-up. YouTube user StreepCap1 posted a video of a stream that NASA abruptly terminated. In the clip, a bright object slowly falls into view, but it's at that particular point that the screen flashes that there are technical problems with the feed. How convenient. But that didn't go unnoticed by watchers, as they pointed out that stopping the feed was highly suspicious. This could well be a meteor or the like, Streepcap1 says in the caption. What made it interesting was the camera cut off when the UFO seemed to stop. So what was NASA's official position? The agency's spokesman, Daniel Hewitt, tried to explain that the live feed was not deliberately cut. Hewitt said cameras mounted on the International Space Station are controlled automatically. According to Hewitt, the station regularly passes out of range of tracking and data relay satellites used to send and receive video, voice, and telemetry from the station. For video, whenever we lose signal, the cameras will show a blue screen or a preset video slate. Nevertheless, people took to social media to refute NASA's claim and insisted that something was not adding up and that NASA might be hiding evidence of aliens. That, however, is not the only time UFOs have been captured by ISS cameras. In another incident, the camera captured a UFO that tracked the space station for about 20 minutes. The bus-sized object must have been traveling at 7.8 kilometers per second to keep up with the station. However, this time before NASA could cut the feed, the footage was picked up and shared on a YouTube channel hosted by noted UFO watcher Scott C. Waring. Waring said concerning the video, "That is NASA zooming in on the UFO, not me. They're as baffled by it as I am. They don't know what it is or why it is there." Waring said the object didn't look like any object he had seen before. To this day, no satisfactory explanation is being given that is not UFO related. And anybody that's been following the ISS will know that the structure is not a stranger to unidentified objects, which makes sense because aliens out there noticing the ISS due to its massive size may want to investigate, sending down probes. Take another case, for example. Ivan Wagner, a Russian cosmonaut who orbited the Earth aboard the ISS, released captured footage of potential UFOs. He was recording a video of the Southern Lights when he happened to be at the right place at the right time. The video lasts 1 minute and shows the aurora australis moving near Antarctica and Australia. However, as Wagner pointed out, you will see something else in the footage. In the 9 to 12 second portion, 5 objects appear and can be seen flying alongside at the same distance. Meanwhile, Wagner observed the UFOs for 52 seconds, but the feed was shortened because it was captured in a time-lapse. Wagner shared the video on his Twitter account, but Russia's space agency Roscosmos also shared it on its Twitter account while it was investigating the video. Wagner was a first-time crew member aboard the ISS when he took the video. Unsurprisingly, NASA never acknowledged Wagner's video. The agency's blog only said Wagner worked on the station's orbital plumbing before exploring ways to improve Earth photography techniques. Even the American astronauts Wagner worked with completely ignored Wagner's video. NASA has a well-documented history of ignoring reports on UFO sightings, even though it falls within its jurisdiction to investigate such claims. But it is getting harder to ignore the topic, as interest in UFOs has increased recently in the US and globally. For instance, there has been government-funded research in UFOs, and the research is still ongoing. Not only that, but the Pentagon has reported encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, another name for UFOs. Several objects and space debris like asteroids have been discovered multiple times in the final frontier, but scientists have now noticed the presence of an interstellar visitor. This visitor looks strange as it's not been seen before in the history of space exploration. The discovery of this interstellar visitor is set to change our thoughts about the universe, hence why scientists are puzzled by this development and have proceeded to find out more about it. On the 14th of October 2017, a strange cosmic object flew past our planet with no one noticing it. About 5 days later, this object was accidentally discovered when it was traveling out of the solar system. It was spotted by Robert Werrick, a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Hawaii Institute of Astronomy. He discovered the interstellar object with a panoramic survey telescope and rapid response system PAN-STARRS during its nightly search for near-Earth objects for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. After spotting the moving object, Werrick checked the PAN-STARRS image archive and found the moving object in the previous night's images. Although it wasn't initially identified, Werrick gathered all the information and submitted the pictures to the Minor Planet Center. When the interstellar object was spotted, it was seen to have weird components. It was shaped like a cigar, its speed was unusual, its orbit was out of place, and the object was also made up of strange properties. The object's motion could not be understood by using a comet orbit or regular solar system asteroids data. To confirm this, he contacted Marco Micheli, a Hawaii Institute of Astronomy graduate. Marco also had some follow-up images taken at the European Space Agency's telescope in the Canary Islands on Tenerife. When the data were combined, everything made sense to conclude that it was a weird object that came from outside the solar system. A scientist at NASA Center for Near-Earth Object Studies in California, Davide Farnocchia, made a comment on this discovery. It is going extremely fast and on such a trajectory that we can say with confidence that this object is on its way out of the solar system and not coming back, he said. Even the object's orbit was irregular, as it was like an additional force was pushing behind it. Gravity's strength was also a key player. Named Oumuamua by its discoverers, it was the first interstellar object to enter our solar system. The team at the Center for Near-Earth Object Studies observed Oumuamua's trajectory and where it was likely to go. Their studies explain the circumstances that led to the object entering our solar system. Their reports also show that the object entered our solar system from almost directly above the ecliptic. An ecliptic is a plane in space where the planets and some of the asteroids orbit the Sun. Coming from this region, the object did not encounter any of the 8 major planets during its travel to the Sun. On the 2nd of September, Oumuamua crossed under the ecliptic plane inside Mercury's orbit before making its closest approach towards the Sun 7 days later. Being pulled by the Earth's gravity, the object made a hairpin turn under our solar system. Oumuamua passed under Earth's orbit at a distance of about 15 million miles before traveling back up. It zipped above the plane of planets at a pace of 44 kilometers per second, making its way towards the Pegasus constellation. At this rate, Oumuamua was traveling 3 times faster than the Earth's orbit around the Sun. This speed left a short window for scientists to study the object, which was not the only problem. Oumuamua also appeared too small and dim to be detected, as it had already flown past our planet by the time it was discovered. Before Oumuamua was spotted, there have been theories about objects like this in space. Thomas Zurbuchen, the Associate Administrator for NASA's Science Mission Directorate in Washington, confirmed such theories. He said there had been speculations about interstellar objects like Oumuamua, and with the object's discovery, it all but confirmed their existence. As there was a short time left to study Oumuamua, telescopes worldwide were called into action to observe the color, brightness, and orbit. Even the European Southern Observatory's Very Large Telescope Interferometer was called on to follow Oumuamua, as viewing from ground-based telescopes was essential to get the best data. Images from the European Southern Observatory's telescope were combined using 4 different filters with those of other large telescopes. From there, a team of astronomers discovered that Oumuamua varied in brightness by a factor of 10 as it spins on its axis every 7.3 hours. Led by Karen Meach at the Institute of Astronomy in Hawaii, they saw that no asteroid or comet from our solar system differs so widely in brightness. The same thing was recorded with Oumuamua's length and width. Meach commented further on its brightness, saying the massive difference in brightness means that the object is very long. It has a complex shape and is 10 times as long as it is wide. They found it had a reddish color related to some objects in the outer solar system. The telescope's results also discovered that it was chemically inactive, without the slightest hint of dust around it. Speculations about Oumuamua being a comet continued to rise among scientists. But since the telescope observations did not see it produce a large, fuzzy, coma-like tail, such hypotheses were discarded. For those of you wondering, large, fuzzy, coma-like tails are synonymous with comets when they are heated by the sun, and this was not the case with Oumuamua. After these observations had been made, scientific journals and global headlines worldwide all had one question: what exactly is Oumuamua? Was it a block of solid hydrogen? Maybe it was a new class of interstellar object, or could it be an artificial construction made by an advanced extraterrestrial civilization, just like Avi Loeb, an astronomy professor at Harvard University, had proposed? While these theories were circulating, Avi Loeb and his colleagues conducted a study on their suggestion. The study talked about the chances of Oumuamua being created by an advanced civilization. They explained that Oumuamua is an artificial thin solar rail that could increase its speed through the force of solar radiation. Harvey says that this is why the object's behavior is similar to a comet's but does not have gravitational acceleration from the sun. Although other scientists seem to disagree with Harvey about his theory. They claim there is not enough evidence to back up his study and that a tumbling solar rail would not have the capability to accelerate. Harvey moved on with his research and eventually published a work that explains 6 irregularities about the Oumuamua, with reasons why it is different from asteroids and comets that we have recorded since the inception of space exploration. Since the study was published, scientists have used the Spitzer Space Telescope to determine how much carbon outgassing standard comets have. In simpler words, how shiny a normal comet is. These observations gave results explaining that Oumuamua shines 10 times greater than the regular comet. With all these observations applied, there still isn't adequate data to support or oppose Harvey's theory, but a lot of astronomers don't believe it to be true. As the debates continued, new theories came up about Oumuamua's origin. Among these theories is the hydrogen ice theory. This theory proposes that Oumuamua is composed of a lot of hydrogen ice. With such a load of hydrogen, the sun's heat transforms it from a solid state to gas, making the Oumuamua fly through space at that speed. It also explains why there is no fuzzy coma around it. Scientists say that this theory would make the coma very hard to notice with telescopes because the atmosphere thins out its wavelengths. Another thing that makes this theory believable is the object's shape. The refining process would make Oumuamua lose an incredible amount of mass, resulting in it being elongated and cigar-shaped. The hydrogen ice theory sounds believable, but a factor makes it unlikely to be true. This is because of a proposition that states the sublimation process would evaporate the ice faster, and this object has been flying in space for too long to be composed of this material. There is another theory known as the nitrogen ice theory. This explains the possibility that Oumuamua is a medium-sized piece of nitrogen ice sailing through the final frontier. It also describes why the Oumuamua does not have a trail behind it. Nitrogen ice could have originated from Pluto, a planet that used to be part of our solar system but is now regarded as a dwarf planet. Supporters of this theory propose that a fragment of an exoplanet broke off and fell into our solar system. They also explain that the nitrogen ice could survive 5 million years in space and can show sunlight, which explains why the object is gleaming. Since Oumuamua has been spotted, researchers have doubled on their scouts, hoping to spot similar objects. An astronomer at Yale University, Greg Laughlin, also notes that billions of Oumuamua-like entities could be drifting through the Milky Way, and scientists around are looking forward to more sightings of these interstellar visitors. And it might not take long before more interstellar visitors like Oumuamua are found. Meanwhile, even if NASA succeeds in hiding video feeds of UFOs approaching the ISS, there are other shocking space phenomena that it can't hide. Take the case of the plumes coming from Mars that were first discovered by amateur astronomers. There is no room for denial here, as the plume was spotted on 2 separate occasions. One of the amateur observers, known as Wayne, used his 14-inch telescope to capture still images which he stitched together into an animation to show the dynamics of the phenomena. Mars is a weird place to start with, but this mysterious plume takes things even further. What is going on the red planet? The plumes were seen rising to altitudes over 250 kilometers above the same region of Mars on both occasions. Such plumes had been sighted before, but they were never more than 100 kilometers in height, so the difference is remarkable. The plume amazingly developed in less than 10 hours, covering an area of up to 1,000 by 500 kilometers, and remained visible for around 10 days, changing its structure from day to day. As far as Mars is concerned, at about 250 kilometers, the division between the atmosphere and outer space is very thin, so the reported plumes are extremely unexpected. You may wonder why it was a group of amateur astronomers and not NASA that spotted this strange plume first. At least 18 amateur astronomers observed the plume using from 20 to 40 centimeter telescopes at wavelengths from blue to red. NASA actually has a number of spacecraft orbiting Mars, but none of them spotted this plume because of their viewing geometries and illumination conditions at the time. However, when scientists checked archived Hubble Space Telescope images taken between 1995 and 1999 and databases of amateur images taken from 2001 to 2014, they discovered occasional clouds at the limb of Mars, although they were usually only up to 100 kilometers in altitude. But one set of Hubble images from the 17th of May 1997 revealed an abnormally high plume similar to that spotted by the amateur astronomers in 2012. But what is responsible for this giant plume coming from Mars? Scientists have managed to come up with several theories, and some of them are really interesting. But let's start with the location. The plume was sighted over the Terra Cimmeria region centered at 45 degrees south latitude. This area includes the Tiger Stripe array of magnetic fields coming from concentrations of iron ore deposits. The ore deposits were discovered by the Mars Global Surveyor magnetometer during low-altitude aerobraking maneuvers at the beginning of the mission in 1998. Before this plume sighting, observers have recorded aurora events over this area. They were the result of the interaction of the Martian magnetic field with streams of energetic particles streaming from the Sun. However, if these plumes are auroras, they would have to be over 1,000 times brighter than those observed over the Earth. And that is not the only issue with this explanation of the massive plume. Another problem is the altitude. All the auroras spotted in this region have not exceeded 130 kilometers in height, which is about half the height of this plume. Even on Earth, auroras are shorter. They don't go beyond ionospheric altitudes or about 100 kilometers. As already mentioned, the Martian atmosphere at 200 kilometers is exceedingly tenuous, and the production of persistent and very bright aurora at such altitude seems highly improbable. And something else to consider is the duration of the plumes, which lasted for about 10 days for each sighting. Auroral arcs on Earth can only last for hours and not days. The Earth's magnetic field works like a capacitor that stores charged particles from the Sun. Some of these particles are discharged and produce the auroral oval and arcs. But on Mars, there is no equivalent capacitive storage of particles. Auroras over Mars are basically what you see is what you get or come directly from the Sun. Concentrated solar high-energy streams persisting for this long are simply unheard of. Well, there has been another explanation for this mysterious plume on Mars. This has to do with dust or ice crystals. However, the same problem shows up here. How? Martian dust storms typically lift dust as high as 60 kilometers, but that is still significantly shorter than the plume. Martian dust devils will lift particles to 20 kilometers. However, it is this second explanation involving ice crystals or carbon dioxide and water that researchers think is more credible. But in either case, the particles have to be concentrated and their reflectivity must account for the total brightness of the plumes. Ice crystals would be more easily transported to these heights and also would be most highly reflective. There is a third explanation, though, proposed by the European Space Agency, the ESA. After studying this Mars oddity, the ESA believes strongly that the plume was caused not by Mars weather, but by space weather. The Sun interacts with planetary environments, as even amateur astronomers will tell you. When the highly energized particles from the solar wind hit the Earth's global magnetic field, for example, they sometimes get trapped in the magnetosphere and are redirected to high-latitude regions. This influx of solar wind ions will collide with high-altitude atmospheric gases, causing them to glow and creating the auroras that we mentioned before. Wherever there's a magnetic field and an atmosphere, the Sun can kick off a dazzling light show. Astronomers have seen auroras throughout the solar system, including Jupiter, Saturn, and even Venus. But then, solar interactions do not stop at auroras. When Earth is bombarded with coronal mass ejections, or CMEs, which are more or fewer bubbles of magnetized plasma ejected from the Sun's lower atmosphere, the whole of the planet's magnetic configuration feels the effects. It generates powerful electrical currents through the atmosphere and energizes our ionosphere. However, in the case of Mars, there is no global magnetic field to deflect the worst the Sun can throw at it. When a CME hits Earth, the magnetosphere protects the atmosphere, but on Mars, lacking this magnetic shield, it suffers atmospheric erosion. It's possible that Mars once had a thicker atmosphere over billions of years, but the continuous flow of solar wind particles has stripped it away. You can say Mars's atmosphere is leaking into space. The question, however, is whether there was a notable space event around when the plume was discovered. The answer could be the missing piece of the puzzle. ESA did say plasma observations showed there was a space weather event that was large enough to affect Mars and accelerate the rate at which plasma escaped from the planet's atmosphere. However, they couldn't categorically conclude this, as they were not able to see any signatures in the ionosphere that could be definitively said to be associated with the plume. All they are left with is circumstantial evidence that Mars's ionosphere was, one way or the other, influenced by a space weather event, such as the impact of a CME. But because of the plume's location, it's a challenge to acquire additional observations of the event, so the evidence remains circumstantial, so the jury is still out on what caused the plume on Mars. But still on Mars, the home of unending mysteries, is an intriguing photograph captured by NASA's Perseverance Mars rover. What makes this photo special? It is in the background where you can see a rainbow. Except that's not a rainbow. Observers have been struck by the multiple colors in the stunning photo and wonder what it is if it's not a rainbow. Well, it was not a rainbow simply because a rainbow cannot form on Mars. Rainbows are created by light reflected off of round water droplets, but there isn't enough water here to condense, and it's too cold for liquid water in the atmosphere, so it doesn't rain on Mars. The image was simply the result of a lens flare, but what is a lens flare? Lens flares are created when non-image forming bright light such as direct sunlight enters the lens and subsequently hits the camera's digital sensor and scatters. Solar flares are a common thing that photographers experience even here on Earth. It's simply a matter of the sun shining into the lens. If this stunning photo is due to the lens, why are such photos not common on the Red Planet? Well, even for the Perseverance, the camera usually shows so much more crisp details in its images. But there is a difference between the cameras on the Perseverance rover and the cameras on other rovers. The previous Mars exploration rovers had, and the Opportunity rover has, solar filters on most of their cameras. And in addition to solar filters, NASA installed sunshades on the front of Perseverance's HazCams. These sunshades were mission critical because the rover required them to drive forward. However, sunshades weren't considered essential on the rear HazCams, so some of those images have scattered light artifacts. Let's hear what you think of the mysteries of Mars in the comments section below.